Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. As the astute among you might have noticed, I'm no longer in Arizona. Neither is Terri. She's here with me in sunny South Florida. So after selling our house, we loaded everything up into our little tiny Honda Fit and made the drive from Arizona to Florida. The drive from Arizona through New Mexico and western Texas was fantastic. And then we hit this little thing called a winter storm. And some of you may remember that a couple weeks back, the winter storm that was probably the worst storm in decades to hit central Texas. And our plans abruptly changed. We ended up spending a night in this little town called Van Horn, Texas. If you've never heard about it, don't worry, neither had we until this past couple weeks. And then, of course, we had planned on stopping in San Antonio, spending a few days to go see the Alamo and all the things there are to see in San Antonio there. That didn't happen. As we got on the road and headed through the remainder of the storm to Alabama. From Alabama, we then drove on into Florida, going through Pensacola. And once again, we wish we could have stopped in Pensacola because there's a lot of things there to see. After taking a few days off to recover from that long, drawn-out trip across the United States, we once again got into the car and headed across the state of Florida to Fort Lauderdale and Miami area, where we looked at some more boats. Now, the first boat we saw was a Morgan 41 Classic, similar to the other Morgan 41, and I didn't put in any information out there yet, but no, this is not going to be a this is not going to be a spoiler alert. We did put an offer in on that Morgan 41 Classic. The guy at the last minute decided he didn't want to sell it anymore. He wanted to continue the dream. So we continued our search. So we thought this Morgan 41 Classic was going to be good for us. Well, as Terri put it, this Morgan 41 Classic was in sad shape. So we don't want to buy a fixer-upper. So we just walked away from that one. So the next boat we saw was a Tiana 42. This boat, like all the Taiwanese boats, has excellent woodworking on it. Beautiful interior, beautiful exterior. It did have a lot of leaking issues. It had prisms in the deck that hadn't been serviced for a while, so they were leaking water. A couple of the hatches were leaking. Luckily, we went on a rainy day. That's a good note to when you're going to look at boats. If you go on a rainy day, you'll see a lot of leaks that you normally wouldn't catch until it's too late. So that Tiana 42, in addition to all those other things, it was a little too cramped. Terri and I both felt cramped on the boat, and I know a lot of people love the Tiana 42 series, but it felt really tiny inside that boat. So we were on to the next boat, which was a Hylas 44. And this boat was beautifully set up as far as the instrumentation and solar and all that other stuff. Where it really lacked was down below. It needed a lot of TLC. The laminate was coming apart in some spots. The woodwork needed to be refinished. It was just a dirty, tired old boat. If you wanted to spend some time fixing it up, it would have been a great boat for you. We just don't want to spend that time. We want to get the boat, get on the water, and start enjoying the cruising life, and then fix boats, because that's inevitable when you own a boat. And then there was the fourth boat we went to see, and that was the Waukee Amphitrite, if I'm saying that right, Amphitrite 43, located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And this boat was a beautiful boat, well maintained. The owner was very knowledgeable. It did have teak decks, which is not my favorite, but the teak decks all the screws had been removed. The cores had been drilled out and then filled with epoxy, and then new bung holes put over top. So there's no more screws in the deck, and the deck seemed pretty good. Down below, and I do have to apologize, we didn't get a lot of footage, hardly any footage of this boat. I just was constantly looking at things, and I was never really turned the camera on. But down below, the boat was very clean. Even the bilges were dry, perfectly clean. Could use some paint because it's still got the original look of the fiberglass down below, but you know, very clean inside and out. Very well equipped, and it didn't have a queen or island berth or anything like that. It had a double berth off to the side with an L-shaped kind of like settee back in the master cabin. The heads were both kind of on the small side. They didn't have standalone showers, but they did have a shower curtain that wrapped around in both spots where the shower would be. So that would be able to keep the water, you know, from spraying all over the wet head. So that was a plus. It did have a bow thruster, which we had in all the boats we've looked at before. None of them have had bow thrusters. And then it did have a remote, a little key remote, which you could actually control the bow thruster or the windlass from. This is pretty neat little key remote thing there. It had a sufficient anchor and anchor rode. It is, however, a ketch rig. Neither Terry and I have ever sailed a ketch rig before, so kind of is intimidating because it is a big, you know, lots of rigging and stuff like that to maintain and operate. So the costs are going to be a little bit higher. With all that said, Terry wrote down everything that we could find on the boat that would need to be addressed, went home, prayed about it a bit, and called up the broker and asked if we can go back and see that boat again. So the next day we went back and saw the boat and talked to the current owner, got some more knowledge about things that need to be fixed on it, things that need to be addressed, got a really good fine footing, and after all of that, we put an offer on the boat. A little bit of hem and hawing back and forth and some tweaking to the contract, and the offer was accepted. So now we go down the journey of doing a survey on the boat and making the boat ours. If the survey checks out okay, we'll be able to accept the vessel, and then we'll move aboard. So we've been taking you along for the survey, as much of it as I can film. I've never done this before, so I really don't want to have the camera on as I'm learning, going around with the survey, or learning about all the systems and all that stuff, testing them out. I'm going to be more interested in learning from that. So is Terry. The camera probably won't come on for a lot of it. I do apologize for that, but hey, I'm more interested in this boat than I am filming the process, and I want to make sure we get the right boat for us, as opposed to getting good content. I don't want to end up having this boat purchased to being a regret because I was too focused on filming. That, and I've always said that I've never wanted to live behind a viewfinder through life. I've always wanted to experience life, and so tough if you were expecting that. With that said, I'm going to wrap this video up. I hope you've enjoyed it. If not, tough luck. And if you have, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and remember to do all those YouTube things like leave a comment down below and subscribe if you haven't already, and then share it with a friend if you think that friend might be interested. That's about it for now. Thanks for watching.